The stream's up, Mr. Suncast? Okay. I am oddly positioned away from my laptop, so let me go and try to share said streams. Can you hear me when I'm this far off mic? Okay.
Oh yeah, you're not in the office, are you?
No. No. My laptop is quite some distance away from me. Let's see how badly this works out. Once again, Facebook doesn't want to let me share stuff without changing a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. Okay, well, maybe that worked. Okay, that worked. All right, Christian, I'm getting plenty of audio back from you, I think. Yes, I'm sorry. That's what I meant to say, Christian. It is just about time for action. Let me get a little pre-show photo. Christian?
Yes. Hello?
Your audio is wrong.
Wrong. Is that better?
I think so.
Okay. Good.
Okay, photos taken. We should be good to go. Hey, everybody on the network. Glad you've joined us for another live This Week in Radio Tech. And I'm not in the usual office. I'm in a really classy place here. Hang on a second. Let me get my phone set aside. I am fully hydrated. I have my crotch water ready here. So we're just about ready to do the show. Oh, it's top of the hour. It's time to go. All right. Suncast is standing by at the controls. Chris Tarr and Christian Vang are standing by, and Dave Anderson will be joining the show in just a little bit. So I guess it's time to start. It's episode 723 of This Week in Radio Tech, and we'll get things rolling here in 3, 2. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower. This radio station that I'm at right now, they've got three or four towers out in the Meadowlands. I'm at WMCA in New York City. Wow, it's a pleasure to be here. This is pretty cool. I'm in the building at 111 Broadway, right. We're just a couple of blocks away from the World Trade Center. We're just right next door to Trinity Church, where a lot of people took refuge during the Trade Center bombing. Wow, it was very, and we're just a block away from Wall Street. So we're kind of down here in downtown, the lower part, lower Manhattan, where all the financial district is, and some radio stations. I'm at the Salem radio stations. They have taken over this space, and they are in studios that actually Tom Ray built, probably about 15 or 16 years ago. and I got to be here with him and do some shows with him, and actually maybe turned a couple screws along the way. So there you go. That's where This Week in Radio Tech is coming to you from today. But today's show, even though I'm so thankful to Salem for letting us do the show here, the show's not about Salem. It's not about WMCA. We do have a show about WMCA coming up. We'll tell you more about that later. But let's go ahead and bring in my co-host. Chris Tarr is here from Mukwonago, Wisconsin. Chris, welcome in. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you. I'm not doing anything nearly as fancy. I'm actually at home looking out. We got about 4 inches of snow today. I don't know who authorized that, but I've filed a complaint with the village. I was not ready for this snow. I was not consulted on it. I was not asked if it was okay. So I'm a little unhappy about this whole situation. But yesterday I was up on top of a roof of a hotel of a hospital in Green Bay. It started to snow there. I'm like, I did not authorize this. This is unauthorized white precipitation. So anyway, we're supposed to get rain over the next few days. So hopefully that'll get rid of all the snow, at least for another week or two, when we probably get some again.
It's interesting that you bring up weather, because weather, lots of it, is really our topic today on This Week in Radio Tech. So, Chris, have you met Christian Vang before? Christian Vang is one of our guests today. You two met?
We've not met. I know of him. I've heard a lot of good things about him, and I've followed some of his stuff online.
All right. Well, Christian Vang, welcome into This Week in Radio
horror
Tech.
Stories too, right?
A few horror.
Well, it wasn't. None of it was good. I'll let you know that right out of the gate.
Oh, okay. That it should be expected.
But I think this is a miracle. Between Suncast and Christian Vang, Christian joins us from his truck. Hey, Christian, it's good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Christian, you and I talked about this topic a few weeks ago. Why don't you introduce the topic? Tell us what we're going to be talking about on today's show.
Well, today, as far as we talked about, we'll be discussing disaster recovery and how that affects broadcasters, and kind of reviewing some of the more recent large storms that have come through, and discussing some of the things that broadcasters did in those situations.
All right. Well, we've got a ton of pictures and video of some recent weather disasters, and Christian Vang will be telling us about, what they had to do to recover from these. I mean, in the Asheville, North Carolina area, hit very, very hard. East Tennessee, northern Georgia, western North Carolina, that whole area. Christian takes care of some public radio stations in that area. Also, he's an engineer for WABE in the Atlanta area. So we're going to be hearing from Christian. Also, in a little while, Dave Anderson from Florida is going to be with us. He's with WUSF. So we're going to wait for, we'll be joined by Dave Anderson in just a few minutes. But I got to tell you, stay tuned and hang on, because Christian has got a bunch of video and pictures to show us. It's going to be very instructive about the things that went wrong in these natural disasters and how they stayed on the air and what they had to do to get back on the air. So I think you're going to find this fascinating, and I'm going to be learning about it at the same time that you do. So hang on to your hats. We're going to go for it. Our show is brought to you in part by Nautel, and Nautel has got this financing thing available now. And I got to bring my notes about this. It's flexible financing from Nautel to maximize your savings on high-performance Nautel equipment. You can enhance your broadcasting capabilities with the perfect blend of high-efficiency transmitter equipment and flexible financing. So now's the time to upgrade that old transmitter with Nautel's high-power solid-state RF solutions using this flexible financing from Navitas. Take advantage of these special subsidized promo rates to maximize your savings and enhance your operations. From Nautel, you can do literally 0% financing rates up to 12 months, 0% financing. And 24 months, you can get a 3.99% APR. And even for 36 months, if you need to draw it out that way, you're still at a pretty favorable rate, 5.99% APR. I really love that 0% rate. If you can pay for that transmitter in a 1-year period of time, it will cost you nothing to finance it. No interest at all on that. Lots of terms and conditions as usual. These things, the lawyers have to get their say in. But if you want to know more about this, go to the Nautel website, or even better, contact your Nautel rep. It's probably in the U.S. going to be Jeff Wilson or the other Jeff. Jeff, what am I thinking of? Why have I gone blank? Jeff Welton. Thank you very much. Jeff Welton or Jeff Wilson. Contact them. And thanks a lot, Nautel, for really working hard to get new transmitters, high efficiency transmitters, into the hands of broadcasters. And that's AM or FM. Doesn't have to be their FM transmitter, be their AM as well. All right, we're going to jump right into pictures and video from Christian Vang. Christian, as usual on this show, you're going to get surprised. I'm going to get surprised by what we see next. So if you have some direction for Suncast, that's fine. But he's busy at the controls trying to bring these things up. So Suncast, why don't we go for it, dude, and just let us see some
First
disasters.
picture. Okay. So this is actually kind of an interesting picture. So they in the Asheville, North Carolina area, one of the largest problems that happened with the hurricane was there was no drinking water. You're looking at the North Fork Reservoir, just northeast of Asheville, and this particular reservoir, after the storm was the water intakes at the water treatment plant below it were damaged so badly that the Greater Asheville region, was without clean running drinking water for the better part of about 3 months.
Oh my God.
They just got clean drinking water back at the beginning of this week. Um, and so these are photos from the water treatment plant. After the storm had drenched the watershed with so much water, and it washed so much mud and debris into the reservoir, and it stirred it up so much that the turbidity was so high that it would damage the pumps and the equipment, so they couldn't actually filter water. And then on top of that, the water table went so high during the storm, 28 feet above flood stage, that it caused the reservoir to overflow down its spillways, which normally doesn't happen. And in doing so, it washed out a major transmission line back into the Asheville area. So so that was a major problem from day one. Uh, but much like the drinking water in that area, there were also problems with a lot of other things. Power was out for many Asheville residents for the better part of about 3 weeks. Cell service was very spotty in many areas for a long time.
Yeah.
And immediately after the storm, the only place you could really get any cell coverage at all was in the downtown area, and that is if you could find a tower that still had connectivity.
Okay.
So that was a major problem.
Let's take a look at some more pictures and video, and you can weave into your story about how this directly affected your broadcasting operations. What's the tunnel here?
Sure. So this is a tunnel along the Blue Ridge Parkway, near the Asheville Nature Center, or Western North Carolina Nature Center. So it's just showing some of the washouts in the roads. One thing about being in a mountain community, whenever there's a storm of this magnitude, right? This was a 200-year storm. Uh, the uh, the infrastructure is really not built to sustain that kind of water, that kind of wind. And so all throughout the Asheville region, you would see this everywhere. So roads up mountains to transmitter sites were completely washed down the mountain in many cases.
Oh my gosh.
There were, many places where things were down to a single lane, or you simply just couldn't get through. Because one, the region's just not used to this kind of weather coming through. I mean, in this particular case, the National Weather Service, the day before the hurricane hit, put out an advisory saying that there would be catastrophic flooding, and that there would be, significant damage. But I think for a lot of residents of Western North Carolina, the thought was, well, we're in the mountains. This never happens to us.
Yeah.
And so,
sure.
a lot of people didn't prepare. A lot of utilities weren't prepared. Because whenever we think about hurricanes, we always think about Florida, or we think about, Alabama, Mississippi. southern states, or we think about states on a coast, Connecticut, New York, some of those places where it's a lot more likely. You don't really think about it hitting, you know, eastern Tennessee and western North Carolina.
Sure. Yeah, this I mean, it came as a surprise and a shock to I live in Central Tennessee, and to know that this was happening literally a 4-hour, 4.5 hour drive east of me, um,
Yeah,
and now to see some of your I mean, the news did a fairly good job, but I'm just you're driving along to go to a transmitter site, and the entire road is out, and you think, well, there's a way around, but it's literally an extra 52 miles to get around the other side of the mountain, and we don't know if that's blocked. So oh my goodness.
right.
Let's take a look at some more pictures if we can here. Try to get through
Sure.
more of these. Oh,
Um,
what's that?
oh yeah, so there's one of the Blackhawks tucking or Apaches touching down at the Asheville airport.
Okay.
Uh, so one of the things that kind of interesting about this area was when the storm hit, nobody was really expecting to have to do any kind of recovery operation afterwards. So this was about a week later. These are all outbound flights. They weren't allowing flights into Asheville, but for people who had gotten stranded there, it took several days before they could get out. Many people were trapped at the airport.
Yeah.
Uh, the
Okay.
airport was also, oh, look, there's that water main, one of them. Uh, you know, uh, Back to the airport picture. Yeah, so there's the water main picture.
Hmm.
So that water main was one of the ones that were washed out whenever the reservoir flooded. Um, what's really unique, uh, see, here's some more pictures of just this is a road along the Blue Ridge Parkway. Um, what it looks like normally versus what it looked like right after the storm. And you can see the folks out there cleaning it up. Um, and if we want to keep going,
Sure.
yeah, so this
Oh,
is so here's a picture of the reservoir, and I thought this was kind of an interesting story. One of the things that Blue Ridge Public Radio did during the storm, immediately after the storm, was broadcast information from local officials. Um, and so one there was a day, it was probably about a week later after the storm. One of the officials from the water department was on talking about the reservoir and some of the safety features of the reservoir. And I thought this was really particularly interesting because when we look at that, we see this wall and it's been breached in the middle.
mhm.
This is a special type of floodgate. This is a non-electric floodgate, and those large white columns that you see there, those are buckets. And what happens is that the lips of each of those buckets is set at different heights above flood stage. And so as they fill up, the buckets will cause those giant concrete, massive pieces to fall down the reservoir or to fall down the
Oh,
spillway, intentionally to let water out of the reservoir. And so there is some dramatic video floating around. Unfortunately, I couldn't find it of water actually coming through the spillway during the storm, and you could just see the torrent coming down the hill. It was pretty impressive to see that much water moving that fast. And talking about what would have happened had that spillway not been there, it would have annihilated the entirety of Asheville, of Lake Lure, Black Mountain, all of those communities along the Swananoa River and along the French Broad rivers would have totally been put underwater.
when in the aftermath of this flood disaster, one thing that brought it home for me, the church I go to, we sent teams out, to help rebuild and mostly clean out the muck so that rebuilding could start. And
Yep.
wouldn't you know, if you've got a church and the name of the church is Riverside Baptist Church, there's a pretty good chance that it will have suffered damage during a flood. If the name
It
of the
was
church is
underwater.
Riverside. That's right.
Yeah.
And so just the amount of just pure damage, just flooding and just muck everywhere. And this is in areas that people just really did not actually expect to flood. And this particular area was just a whole road of mostly immigrants who are there
Mhm.
working various jobs, a lot of manual labor jobs. And wow, I mean, these people really needed help, and so that was a little bit of the human side. Whereas you're looking at the human side, but also trying to get your transmitters back on the air. And how many can you give us a count, Christian, of how many transmitters you have and what was off the air?
Sure. So there's 16 signals in the Blue Ridge Public Radio network. A lot of them are translators. There's a couple of full power signals that feed all those translators. Um, for the
Oh, looks like we lost Christian.
oh,
Chris Tar Chris
most
Tar.
part, Blue Ridge.
Okay, maybe he's coming back. There you go.
There
You're
we
back.
are. Apologies. So Blue Ridge Public Radio has signals all throughout Western North Carolina. 16 different signals. The majority of them have genset at the site, so we were lucky that most of them stayed on. A lot of the translators are co-located with other public utilities, so that helped. But immediately after the storm, you know, there was a protocol document that had been written a number of years ago about what to do in a major disaster, kind of hoping, pie in the sky it would never happen. Turns out it had to be used, but everybody just followed the plan, and managed to stay on the air, managed to provide information immediately after the event, and then on into the weeks after. Um, you know, great connections with the city and with various state officials. We were able to get a lot of interviews and a lot of sound, from a lot of places. Blue Ridge Public Radio was very lucky in that, one, they have excellent connectivity at their studio.
Mm, okay.
They
Mhm.
they allowed their TOC to be used by a local ISP to host one of their router pops, and so luckily the studio was one of the few places in town that actually had real working internet, and could get information in and out. I don't think for the first 3 or 4 days anybody really knew how bad things were because
Wow.
there was no flow of information. There was no cell coverage anywhere. And so radio really became this sort of lifeline. I know on Facebook and just other conversations, the guys from iHeart were, there kind of right immediately after the storm, working to get WWNC back on, and working to get some of those iHeart signals back on, just because radio became this lifeline. People were going and sitting in their cars and listening to the radio because it was the only way they could find out what was going on.
Oh, okay. Wow. Wow. That's good to hear that radio was responsive. Christian, looks like you may be at home. So if you want to take a couple minutes to go get inside,
Absolutely.
is that what you want to do? Okay. Chris Tarr and I will chat for a minute. We'll do a commercial break. We're with Christian Vang. He's an engineer for Blue Ridge Radio and also for WABE. He's sharing a lot of pictures and video with us. Dave Anderson from Florida, around the Tampa area, will be joining us from WUSF. Chris Tarr is with us. Chris, uh, you get snow there, but what kind of disasters have you had to deal with?
Well, I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't dealt with, we have tornadoes and things like that. But a good example of, I have two good examples. Number one, when I was with Intercom and Katrina came by with WWL, I had a lot of input on that, and that was obviously a big thing for the company, and that's when we started developing local plans for emergencies. Um, but also the day I met you, 9/11, with the stations around Chicago. Obviously, there was a lot going on. And we ended up daisy chaining all of our radio stations around suburban Chicago and simulcasting. And that's where we were taking phone calls from people who were scared, didn't know what to do. We had reporters gathering information. So again, I mean, radio still today, is that lifeline for people. I mean, WWL during Katrina, I mean, there are still stories written about that, how, they were the voice of the government especially for the first few days. That was the
Yeah.
only way to get information through WWL. And we learned a lot of lessons from that, not just, Intercom as a company, but I think as broadcasters, about planning, disaster planning, and even things like the FCC DERS program, kind of started to come out, after that. And we're working on a thing here in the in the state of Wisconsin, with the Media Reliability Council that we're putting together, to kind of let other, get a consortium of broadcasters together and share information about, does one person have studio space for another station if there's a disaster? What capabilities do you have? Are you able to, throw another station in there that may not have power or something at their facility? So, fortunately, we don't have many natural disasters in the area other than storms and tornadoes, but certainly we plan for it, and we understand that, as Christian said, we are the lifeline to these people. And again, I have, right here in front of me, I have a little radio here that's crank up, and
Yep.
in an emergency, I can listen to the radio. And there, a lot of people have these. They're inexpensive from Amazon. We're talking about, there was a storm down, I want to say down near Barneveld, Wisconsin, and we were just talking with the WBA about handing out, having a stock of radios, of battery powered radios to hand out in emergencies to residents, to have radios who might not have a battery powered radio, but you're not, your internet's going to be down, your phones are eventually going to die, you can't keep them charged. All you have is radio. So, I mean, it's really important that we think about those things.
I think I've got about 3 of those crank up radios. Maybe a couple of them have little solar cells on the top. I think you'd have to be in the bright sunny desert for that to really work very well. But have you ever tried to keep the radio going with the crank?
Oh
You get
yeah,
quite a
yeah. And
workout.
this one has a solar cell on it too. I have never actually
Yeah.
tried it, but you can charge it up. You can actually use it to charge other devices and things.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I think those are they're important to have, and I think that even now people get the message that you should have. I mean, emergency management always talks about have a radio handy in your kit.
Yeah, true. Hey, Chris, we're going to be back with you and with Christian Vang, and Dave Anderson from Florida will be talking to us. He'll be joining us shortly. This week in Radio Tech, I'm Kirk Harnack, live in the WMCA studios in New York City, down in the financial district here. Salem Radio has made these studios available, and I really appreciate Andy Gladding and his engineering and operational staff here for helping us out today. We'll be right back after this word from our friends at Broadcast Bionics.
Welcome to the Bionic Studio. The Bionic Studio brings all audience interaction to the fingertips of a production team in radio, TV, and podcast. Our workflow-led system is working 24/7 around the world for small broadcasters and national and international networks. Our telephony module, Bionic Talk Show, allows cost-effective centralization, remote operation, scalability, and resilience across an entire network of stations, but at the same time is used in single-studio self-op environments. Social media curation and activity is now considered a broadcast-critical part of programming. Bionic Social means the studio isn't overwhelmed with a wall of interaction from an ever-growing number of social platforms. We combine SMS, MMS, and email together with a speech-to-text service for listeners using smart speakers. We enable studio teams to curate, filter, and display all platforms in one place, and post text, images, and video content to multiple platforms in one operation. Effortless collection of video content with Bionic Director has helped position some of the world's most successful stations as leaders in viral content, generating appointments to listen and free marketing via retweets and shares. Bionic Contest enables end-to-end tracking of on-air competitions, live reads, and prizes. These could be on-air contests, automated SMS entry, or online. Anywhere, and Skype TX for Radio brings high-quality audio and video contribution into the studio with ease. No need for dedicated PCs to run different applications. Everything is controlled within the Bionic Studio UI, and incoming connections are visible to users along with all other platforms. Our codec integration enables connection, algorithm configuration, and directory to a wide range of IP and ISDN codecs.
Great.
The Bionic Studio, a unique suite of products designed to enable your talent to work smarter.
Broadcast Bionics, really appreciate the geniuses at Broadcast Bionics for helping us out with sponsoring the show and helping the broadcast industry out with their amazing software and hardware solutions. They make some really cool stuff. All right, it's This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack in the studios at WMCA at 111 Broadway in the financial district, right down the street from Wall Street here in New York City. Chris Tarr is with us from McWanago, Wisconsin, and also Christian Vang is back in his home office. There you are. Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, way better than driving.
I just got a message. Dave Anderson will be joining us shortly. Hey, why don't we get back and hit some more pictures and video real quickly? So we can talk about that, get more of them done. So, Suncast, there you go. What are we looking at, Christian?
Okay, so this was the generator that ran the longest. As this old cat ran for 15 days straight. This particular site, the road actually washed down the mountain, and so it took us a while to get up to it just to be able to check fuel levels. We knew when the event started that we had enough fuel to last probably 7 to 10 days.
Okay.
We made it to day number 9 and finally got access up the road. Had to have the Asheville Fire Department cut us a couple of new spots in the road. There's some other pictures that'll come up here in a minute of where the road washed out. And so we ended up carting up diesel fuel in 5-gallon cans and refueling it a little bit at the time. I think we made
You really had to do
4
that?
or 5 different trips.
You had
Yeah.
to carry fuel there?
Yep. So this is that's Duncan Fowler, who is the on-site engineer at Blue Ridge. Absolute, just great guy. And we went out. We found diesel, which we didn't think we were going to find, but we did. And then just we took turns just making trips and dumping gas in.
Wow.
So,
During those first 9 days when it was running, could you sleep at night?
It was hard.
Okay.
It was very
I have a hard time sleeping knowing, there's a generator running somewhere up a mountain, and I think it's got fuel. Let's just hope it doesn't pop an O-ring or something like that,
Well, and so actually that was one of those disaster preparedness things that I think we'll do differently next time. This time, because again, nobody really took this as seriously, I think, as it was, at least at the beginning. Just because it's so strange for a hurricane to bother the mountains, and so I think the assumption was, well, the last time we checked it, we were at about, almost full. We had it refilled, 6 months ago. So we can assume that just exercising, we're burning up, this much fuel. So we actually had at one point, we're sitting at the table doing fuel calculations to try to figure out, like, okay, what is our burn rate and how close to disaster are we really? The thing about this site that is a bit different from some of the others. This is a main distribution point for the STL system. The 950 signal for a lot of the network actually goes through this site from downtown Asheville, since there's not line of sight, beyond it, out onto some of the other mountain ridges. And so, in this case, we got real nervous at one point because we were 9 days in and going, okay, we knew we had about a week's worth, but and when we got up to the site, we were down to 1/8 of a tank. And so getting that first load of 80 gallons of fuel into the tank was kind of a big sigh of relief. It was like, okay, at least we know we can make it a couple more days, because then the priority really changed from, okay, the generator's running and we're okay, we're on the air, we've got fuel, to how long can this generator run before we're going to need to take it down for maintenance? Because we've already really sort of exceeded the normal maintenance envelopes on one of these things,
Yeah.
especially one that just doesn't get used that much. So it's like, so there were a lot of tense moments and a lot of questions, I think, amongst all of us, who were there on the ground of how long can we go, and then what's our contingency plan if this fails? Because it's going to take out our 950 systems uh, pretty much across the entire network. So how are we going to get back on? And so
Yeah.
there were a number of what if scenarios that were played, to try to figure out what the best options were. We were very lucky in that we got power back eventually. Um, but there were some tense moments for
Let,
sure.
let's see what more pictures and video Suncast might have queued up for us here.
Sure. So just briefly, because I know we're going to be getting on to Dave here in just a minute. So this is looking down. This is High Top Mountain. This is from the main site, looking down the hill that the power lines come down. And the one
Mm.
thing you can't really see in that picture is a power line because it's not there. Um,
Oh, oh,
the
okay.
the tree that you see down about halfway snapped it, and so we had to it was snapped in two places coming up the mountain.
Okay.
So at that point, once we got access, then it became about recon. Let's go go find out what's accessible, what can we get to. Let's go check antennas and make sure directionals are on azimuth. Let's go make sure transmitters are running. If there are satellite or microwave dishes we need to look at, let's go make sure those are okay. But then also let's take pictures of the infrastructure coming into those places because that's important for being able to call in the trouble, with the power company. So being able to give them exact pole numbers, for instance, was really helpful because we were able to say, okay, well, it's this pole, this pole, this pole, um, you know, and they were able to eventually get crews out there to fix it. So and being able to give them specifics, I think, really made a big difference in terms of time.
Cool. All right.
So
I know
if you want,
Suncast is probably busy also working to get Dave Anderson in right now, but yeah, let's look at what's next. Oh, that looks disastrous.
oh yeah, so this is the road. Well, what was the road
Yeah.
before it slid down the hill? What was there slid about 45 feet, 50 feet down the hill, just kind of into a pile. Took all the trees and dirt with it on its way down. So that's the fire department actually cut us a new road over the top of it to be able to
Oh,
get in. So that's that rise over on the left side of the photo. We want to
okay.
go to the next one
Yeah.
and kind of yeah. So just trees that we had to cut going up. We took a chainsaw and a winch and sliced some trees and moved them out of the way and got to we're able to get up to where we needed to go. So and I think there are quite a few pictures in this reel of just a lot of down trees, a lot of uh, root trees that were turned up by their roots. Oh yeah, main transmitter. Obviously, this transmitter normally runs at about 2.5 kilowatts.
Yeah.
There was a DC power supply fault that happened, and we think it was probably the result of lightning.
Oh, yeah.
Luckily we had another power supply at the shop, so we were able to just switch them out. Wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
But
Good deal. Yeah.
but this was part of the going and checking everything after the fact and saying, just seeing what was there and what was running and um, checking to make sure things are still on towers that are supposed to be there.
Is this that
This is an
site
area.
is this the site with the big cat generator?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
A
And
lot going
so,
on there.
there is a lot going on there. There's low power TV. There's WCQS is up there. There's a backup for one of I believe it's an intercom station or an Odyssey station, formerly intercom,
Yeah.
that comes up from Greenville. And plus there's a good amount of two-way up there. And then the tower that's immediately behind, that's kind of behind the trees, that belongs to a two-way consortium. um, what was if you go to the next picture, I think there might be one of their little generator. I thought this was kind of funny, or not funny, but just like, okay, everybody got prepared. Came up and I walked down the hill and I was like, why do I wasn't expecting to hear a gen set running because there's no gen set on that building. And lo and behold, they had rolled one up there and had an LP tank. So I thought that was
Wow.
good on them for thinking ahead. That's the Asheville Two-Way Club, and that's one of their ham repeaters that are up there. So I thought that was really really unique. Ham radio
Hey,
actually
Christian,
plays.
Christian, it looks like Dave Anderson has become available. Let's see if Dave's
That's good.
if Suncast can switch him in as well. Hey, there's Dave. Look at that
Hey,
studio. Are you at home or
hey.
you in the big pro studio?
No, I'm in the big pro studio. I decided
Okay.
I was down in Sarasota, and by the time I got back up here, I didn't have enough time to make it all the way home. So I'm just doing it here in the studio that we got set up for video. So yeah, why not?
Wow. Well, hey, ladies and gentlemen, on the podcast, look, there's four of us here. Dave, I'm in New York City. Chris is in Mukwonago. Christian is, where are you, Christian? Atlanta?
I'm in Atlanta.
Okay. And Dave's in Tampa or where?
Tampa
Okay.
right now.
Well, good.
Yep.
Well, good deal.
At-
Well, Dave, you're just in time for for us to take a deep breath. Christian's been showing us some pretty amazing pictures, scary pictures, roads being out and things like that. Cat generator ran for it ran for more than 9 days. It ran for 9 days before they could get up there to put some fuel in it. Christian, that had to be about 16 5-gallon cans of fuel. Is that about right?
By the time we were all said and done, let's see, it would have been 999. So it would have been 27.
Oh, 20. Oh, wow, that many. Wow. All right.
Yeah.
A lot of
'Cause
work
we
to
had
keep stuff going. Go ahead.
yeah, we had several 5-gallon cans and then a bunch of like little 2-gallon cans. That would fill them all up, take them all up the hill.
Wow. Wow. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Dave Anderson will have some pictures he'll share with us. Christian will share some more. I wish we had more than an hour. It's so interesting to see what other engineers have to go through and then their thoughts about, what to plan for the next time. And how do you plan for something for a 200-year event? That's what Christian, said earlier. It was like a 200-year event. Wow. I mean, that could be our great, great, great grandkids. And who knows, will we have flying cars by the time this happens again? I sure hope so. Chris Tarr is with us, and we're going to be right back with more from Dave Anderson, Christian Vang, and Chris Tarr. I'm Kirk Harnack, and our show is brought to you in part by Angry Audio. And Chris Tarr is going to tell you something about the Rave audio console from Angry Audio. Let's see some pretty video here and hear the pretty voice of Chris Tarr.
Well, let me tell you about Angry Audio's Rave console. This thing is fantastic. Now, it got an award, by the way, Radio World Best of Show 2024, and here is why. This thing is built like a tank. They cut no corners. As they like to say, they rounded some, but they didn't cut any. Things like on-air lights that indicate when the mics are open, automatically mutes the monitor. There's 2 stereo output mix buses. There's Q on every input. Channels 1 through 4 are switchable between mics and lines, and of course, they've got those great Angry Audio preamps built in. RJ45 connectors on the back if you want to do Studio Hub Plus. This is a real console. It's not one of those little toys that you have, the little baby ones. This is a full-fledged broadcast console, and this thing is fantastic. Now, whether or not maybe you're a voice tracker, you're looking for something at home, maybe you're looking for a great little production console, or even on air. Nowadays with playout systems, you don't really need a whole lot of inputs and outputs. This is just a ticket, and it's so affordable too. And of course, you can combine it with lots of other Angry Audio devices to make your studio look nice. They also have a power supply with a rack mount, which is really cool looking to go with the Rave console. So all you need to do is stop by their website, angryaudio.com, check out the Rave console, and problems go away when you get angry. angryaudio.com.
All right. And hey, here I am trying to get my video. There we go. Sorry, didn't mean you to see the side of my head like that. Our show is also brought to you, in addition to Angry Audio, brought to you by Max Connect and Max Connect Wireless. And, I'm sorry I wasn't prepared. We're going to have it. Yeah, okay, the U192. That's what we want to talk about. Max Connect has this product that was actually it's being built under contract by Angry Audio, and Angry Audio had a big hand in designing this thing. But the Max Connect U.192 is a very specialized sound card. Now, your buddies down at the recording studio down the street are not going to need the sound card. This is very specific to broadcast because it has a very specific use. The Max Connect U192 is for broadcasters, broadcast engineers who want to use an FM processor that runs on a computer. And that's becoming more and more popular with products like Stereo Tool, Breakaway One, Omnia SST, and maybe there's some others. But these products need to have an external or an internal sound card that has a very precise and very well behaved 192 kilohertz sampling rate. And it also needs to have no capacitors in the audio line at all. It needs to be able to basically do down to DC and up to 190, well, half of the Nyquist rate of 192 kilohertz. And you need this to give you a proper and accurate FM multiplex baseband signal. That's what these processors are good at, but you got to have the hardware to get this signal out. Now, here's what's cool about this. You can run one of these processors in a computer at your studio, if you like, or at the transmitter site, and then come out of the computer USB and then into the U192. And then from the U192, you get the BNC connection, the composite analog connection, and it's as perfect as you can get. And you know how important that is to have a quality MPX or multiplex composite signal into your FM transmitter or into your 950 megahertz STL that's carrying the composite signal. All that's critical, and the U192 is a product that I wish we'd had some years ago, but we have it now from Max Connect. Also, if you need a quality way to get audio into your computer that's going to be running your stereo processor, it's got analog and AES-EBU inputs on it as well. The U192, really cool box. Check it out. It's available from all your favorite broadcast dealers. The branding on it is Max Connect, and it's actually built by Angry Audio. What a well-designed box. Check it out. I'm going to be using a couple of those in Hawaii soon. So, all right. Thanks a lot to Max Connect and to Angry Audio for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right. As I said on the back channel here, we're going to jump right into pictures. So, Suncast, I'm going to let you kind of drive the boat and listen to what our guests are saying. We want to jump over into some Dave Anderson pictures. Let's do Dave if you don't mind. We'll jump back to some of Christian stuff later. Oh, okay. I should give Suncast a little bit more of a heads up.
Yeah, way to go.
He's jumping. Here we go. All right. Alligators. I see alligators.
Oh yes, this was just basically about an hour north of Tampa, little city called Crystal River. It's right there on the it's just south of where the Helene made landfall, probably by about 60 miles. And this was a full 24 hours after the storm passed us. And this was a road that I have to go to get to one of my contract sites. And we worked our way out there. And this is a huge 4x4 that a buddy of mine drove me out with. And we were able to get to the site. We had to walk the last little bit of it to get there, but we did get to the site.
Yeah.
And you'll see in another picture here. I mean, it's just unbelievable how much water was there. This particular site is out in the marshland, so it's elevated, but the propane tank on the ground was not. And, well, we'll see a picture of that in a minute. This is my generator down in Nokomis, which is just about where the second storm made landfall. We were about 15 miles away from landfall on this one, and the wind was blowing so strong, you'll notice that these leaves are essentially glued to the side of the transmitter, or the generator. They will not come off. You can sit there and scrape it with your finger. It will not come off. It's just insane there was that much wind. That generator ran for 8 days. Kept us on the air for 8 days. I have to tell you that if there's one thing that I could encourage everyone watching this is don't assume that your fuel plan is going to work. Just don't assume it. Everyone in this market had fuel plans with different suppliers, um, different avenues, different ways of getting it there. Some had little 90-gallon tanks on their pickup trucks. Some had big trucks they could do. It's really a problem when there's just no diesel in the area. We had guys driving literally to the other side of the state to get diesel to keep stations up and running.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
this
Okay.
area, because the storm came up the entire length of the peninsula, it affected such a massive area. Normally, when a storm comes ashore here in Florida, it'll affect an area, plus minus 50, 100 miles. You get a little bit north to south of that, and you're out of the disaster zone. This
Yeah.
thing started at the south side of Florida and worked its way right up to the panhandle. So we just ran into a situation where all the best plans I thought I had for fuel kind of got tossed out the door. Um, we were able to keep everything running, but I mean, the anxiety level of doing that was quite challenging considering I had at one point, 5, 6 stations running on generator at the same time. It was definitely a challenge to keep everything full, but
Uh,
it, just like I say, reevaluate your generator fuel plans because chances are if there is a very long power outage, you're probably not going to be able to work with it unless you have got some extraordinary program. Um,
Let's jump into
that's
some more pictures here. Suncast, whatever you can show us. Ooh, ouch! What's that?
so that's down by where that's where Milton made landfall, down by Siesta Key. That particular site is where our classical station WSMR is at. And
Hmm.
a huge pine tree came down through and took out the ice bridge. There were coaxes attached to that, but they're actually laying down on the ground.
Oh,
It
wow.
hit that ice bridge, totally brought it down. It also hit a generator on the other side of the building that Verizon was at. This site took it on the chin really bad. That's the same site that Kohler generator you saw was at. Um, we had some water intrusion into the building just from wind-driven rain, nothing else. Getting to the site, we had to walk to it. We couldn't drive to it. We ended up having to wade to it, but we were able to get there. Um, but yeah, trees were falling down everywhere, and you know how strong that ice bridge material is.
Yeah.
To see it snapped like that, it's like, and the thing is my transmission line was on the next ice bridge over to 3
Oh, okay.
Ancheliacs. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it missed the ice bridge we were on by inches.
Wow. All right. What's next? We got another picture, Suncast. What's that?
So that is up here in Riverview. In Tampa, most of our stations are in Riverview. We have a farm out there. That is the PBS station's building next to ours, where our buildings are side by side. That's what happened to their roof. The garage door also got messed up. It's all boarded up now, but they definitely had water going into their transmitter building. I know it got into some electrical switchgear. Didn't take them off the air, but it definitely wasn't a good thing.
All right. Next.
See what you got next.
Part of a generator, huh?
Oh yes, this this was bad. This was a station here in town. About 2 days into the outage, um, get a phone call from the general manager. Station's off the air. Go out there and it's in a low oil alarm. Turn around and all of a sudden I look underneath the engine and there's about 4 quarts of oil on the ground. That's the oil
Ooh.
pressure sender. For those that are familiar with working on cars the old days, that's what powers your meter telling you what your PSI is. It's a little
Oh, okay.
diaphragm, and if that diaphragm blows, it'll start squirting the oil out underneath the wire, and that's what happened. So, luckily, Kohler puts 2 switches. They have this one for the meter, and then they have another one, which is kind of like a low pressure cutoff switch that shut the generator off before it damaged itself. But again, all the best laid plans that you have, our Kohler dealer here in Tampa got flooded with 5 feet of water. I couldn't get this part. Literally,
Oh
it
my
was
God. Yeah.
35 minutes from where I was at. I could not get this part. The road was flooded. You couldn't get to it. It was actually easier for me to overnight it FedEx to the depot and me go pick it up at the FedEx depot at the airport than it was otherwise. So the next morning we had them back up and running.
Well, I'm glad you had the
Again,
wherewithal
things
to, to find another way to get it. Yeah.
yeah, it was just crazy. Now that's that site that we were on our way driving out to that where the road was flooded. That tank was anchored down with strap. It had bolts going in concrete underneath it, and it had anchors going across it like a mobile home would have. It pulled them all out. That tank, we figure, was probably about 9 feet up in the air
Oh
at
my
one
goodness.
point.
Jeez.
So it got
Will
back
a
down
propane
on.
will a tank like that float if it's full of fuel?
No, typically if it's not full, but you can only fill those tanks 80%. So you've
Oh,
got
yeah, that's right.
20% of
Yeah.
volume is going to be 20% of volume is going to be vapor and air. So you
Yeah.
figure that tank empties. That's a 500. That tank, I think I did the math. It's like 4,000 pounds of buoyancy. So it was at about half whenever the flood hit. So you figure, it'd be 2,000 pounds of force pulling up on the ground. So it pulled that thing right up off the ground. Um, we got to the site. When we got to the site, three of us went out there and we were able to roll the tank around. And it weirdly only put a kink in the copper line. When I
Huh.
unkinked it
How
and put a
about
pair
that?
of pliers on it, I was able to flatten it back out. We went up, turned the generator on, we left. It was like, okay, on to the next site. But
Yeah.
the fuel supplier got out there right after the flood subsided and they got everything squared away and fixed again for us. But again, the little things you don't think of. And
All right.
this is the first time I've been through a storm since Charlie. Charlie was the last big hurricane here in Florida that I went through. And even having gone through that, which was a bad storm, you'd think, okay, well, you've got your checklist of things, but there's still things that you just don't think of that happen. And they can definitely take you off the air. There's no doubt about that. What you got next?
What is that?
So this was in the middle of Milton. This was our war center. That's essentially the studio that you're looking at right now. You see the NPR sign in that other room. I'm sitting right in front of that sign. This is where we broadcasted live for about a day and a half, uh, carrying news, and we had weather, and we had a meteorologist from the University of Florida through a program here in Florida called the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network. We had meteorologists on, and we were streaming it live on YouTube as well, and just doing our best to keep the public informed. And that was at one point where we had just all walked out of the room. It was just like, wow, look, look at this monstrosity that we've built.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that kind of looked like your war room, if you would say, or command central for your broadcasting, especially with all the radar images up on the
Oh
screen.
yeah, it was just crazy. But we kept everyone informed. We luckily enough never went off the air. There were some stations in the market that had issues. We never went off the air by the streak of luck, I might add. We have two fiber paths out to the tower site. One went down in the first part of the storm. It came back up about halfway through the storm, and then the other one went out.
Oh,
Maybe 30 minutes of overlap. My 950 microwave still was working, but I'm down probably about 20 dB from normal, so I don't know how reliable it really would have been. It actually bent the stiff arm on the antenna.
oh my goodness. Wow. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Next.
So, see what you got next. Oh, yes. This is that site down in Nokomis again, and this is one of the things you have to watch out for after you when you go down and do your tower inspection. You have to look around at things that might be flying around or moving around on your tower. What you're going to notice here is the safety cable. It popped completely out the entire way up the tower. And when you get up a little
Oh.
higher on the tower, up where my antenna's at, you're going to notice that that wire is flapping around right within about 6 inches of my bay, of that 6 bay
Oh.
ERI that's there, right underneath the lambda. That was causing my SWR to go from about 5 watts to about 35, enough to make me think we had a serious problem at the site when we got down there. Thinking, oh, yeah, we got to have a bullet that's going bad. So, we cracked a joint on the antenna or something, and that's what it was. So it was the safety climb cable. It
Yeah. Yeah.
never happened before, but it's now something that's going to be on my radar to make sure it's tightened down before storms come through. That's our transmitter building in Riverview. That the other building you saw, the PBS building that had roof damage, this is our building, which is right in front of it. Our building's kind of strange. It was built it had a metal composite roof that leaked at one point, and their solution was to build it to make it look like a house since there's a subdivision next to us now. So that roof, even though that it's exposed, there's still another roof underneath it, but I've still got to get it fixed because we've actually already had people from the homeowners association make comments about the fact that the building doesn't look nice now. The
All right.
things you have when you have neighbors next to your towers. What you got next? Oh yes, this is the inside of WUSF. So our plant is a GV30 is our main and a NV40 is our backup. And we knew, you can see the metal roof there that I was talking about. That's the secondary roof. We knew that it was going to be bad. Chris Sampson and I worked together here at WUSF, and we basically said, let's go tarp these things. I've done this before. We did this during Charlie. You totally encase your backup transmitter, turn the power off on it, disconnect all the AC, anything feeding it, and then you build kind of a tent over your other transmitter so it can still breathe. Theory being, if you get water through the roof, it might let you survive. Most of the stations around here that had problems due to water intrusion.
Oh, yeah, sure.
One of the stations at my previous employer that Kirk, it had a concrete deck on the roof, but it had a plywood sheath that no one knew about that was up there on top of it. That was where everything was tarred down to. It ripped that
Yeah.
off, and literally hundreds of gallons of water poured through GV30. I have a picture of a
Oh,
Zip one that I forgot to send you. It's got water inside it behind the LCD display.
oh,
So
no. Like
yeah,
like a Zip One fish tank.
yeah, exactly. And again, that was the night of the storm. That is US 19, which anybody familiar with Florida knows is a very major route on the west coast of Florida. 6
Yeah.
lanes. For probably the better part of about 40 miles, you ran into spots where it was anywhere from 1 feet to 4 feet underwater.
Wow. Dave, I
Yeah, it was.
appreciate all these pictures. We got time for a couple more before our last break. Go ahead. What's this, Dave?
This is another contract guy I work with. This is just down the road from that last picture you just took. This is a 4-story building, and if you look there on the right-hand side, just by that palm tree, you're going to see the water line on the building. It was 8 feet
Oh,
of water in the building. Yeah, you can see it over there on the far right-hand side. You'll see the water line. That's how high water got into this building. Never had seen water before. The building's been there since 1969. It totally took out all the electrical switch gear. The transformer they even had to replace because the oil had salt water in it. Luckily enough, when the previous engineer that took care of the station built it out, he put the generator on the roof since they're on the 4th floor. And that's why they
yeah.
were able to stay on the air. But yeah, that generator, I heard you mentioning how long generator ran. That generator ran for 1,008 hours, 6 weeks
Mm,
before they could
my
get
gosh.
everything back to normal.
Man, we could probably talk about this literally all day, and I wish we
Oh
had that
yeah,
kind of time,
it's
and we don't.
no, but
Yeah.
it's amazing just what these storms can do, and you never know what they're going to do.
And we're gonna try to finish the show up talking about disaster planning, but so many of these things, I don't know how you plan for. I mean, obviously we do the best we can. We try to give ourselves options, but you never know exactly what's going to happen. So, Christian Vang and Dave Anderson are with us, and they're both going to come back and give us their best advice on disaster planning, and we'll do that in just a minute. I'm Kirk Harnack. I'm in New York City at WMCA. I'm at the Salem radio stations here at 111 Broadway in Lower Manhattan, just around the corner from Wall Street. And we will be back. We're gonna hear from our friends at Broadcasters General Store talking about Vox Pro.
Hey, what's happening? St. John here, coming to you from Command Central, and wanted to tell you about the absolute best partner you can have in radio. I'm talking about, boom, Wheatstone's Vox Pro. Now, a lot of folks have used previous versions of Vox Pro, all awesome, but I want to tell you about some of my favorite new features in 7. And for folks who've never used Vox Pro before, I'm about to tell you why it's an absolute game changer and essential for really fast-paced multi-element radio. Lots of different audio software out there. Why Vox Pro? Because it was designed for radio. It's the only software designed to do what we needed to do, which is record, edit, playback in real time. When I say lightning fast, I'm going to show you how fast you can edit stuff up in Vox Pro right now. Literally 3 clicks on the controller. Mark left, mark right. Everything that gets marked, you hit delete, it goes away. It's literally that fast. So we're going to take this part right here. Boom. From caller 9 to him saying, I'm ready.
5, ready for that secret sound.
Boom. All of that stuff, hit delete, it goes away. Here's your edit.
You are tackling secret sound caller 9. I'm ready, St. John.
So one of the best features of version 7, this is awesome. It's effects macros, and you can literally put a chain of effects together so that instead of having to normalize a phone bit and then use noise reduction on it and EQ it and all that, you can literally build a chain. One button, this one's called call right here. I just click that. All of those processes happen instantaneously. Literally saves 80% of your editing and cleanup time.
Final thing that I love about Vox Pro, and there's so much more to get into, but one of my favorite things, you can load it on a laptop. I've literally done my show from a hotel room in Armenia to the conference room at, this was fun, jury duty. Great thing, no one could tell the difference. Vox Pro makes it totally easy. Telling you, if you're looking for the best on-air partner, call my friends at Wheatstone, ask them about Vox Pro, and you will be glad you did.
Great deal on a Vox Pro. Contact Broadcasters General Store, BGS. The website is bgs.cc, and their phone number, because they're great at answering the phone. They're just great. A pleasure to talk to. 352-622-7700 for Broadcasters General Store. They're standing by to talk to you, and oh man, I have been buying from them for 30 years. Thanks a lot, Broadcasters General Store, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Hey, it's Kirk Harnack here, along with Christian Vang in Atlanta and Dave Anderson in Tampa, Florida. Gentlemen, I wish we had more time. I really appreciate the effort you've put into bringing us pictures and video. We got as many of them in as we could. We got to talk for a few minutes, though, about, all right, now that you have this information and you've been through this and you've had the sleepless nights and you've carried fuel here and there, and it's amazing how many problems are similar, even though it's different environments that you're in. Generators, electricity, wind and rain ruining things. Let's talk about trying to plan for what you're keeping your options open for the next time this happens. Christian, if you want to pipe in first, what would you like to say about planning for disasters?
Sure. I think if there was one thing I took away from this storm and this particular event, it was that you really, as jaded as we get to news and just to current events going on around us, whenever the Weather Service is actually giving really serious information saying, hey, flooding is going to happen, loss of life is imminent, take it seriously. I think for the Asheville region, for Western North Carolina especially, had more people taken it seriously, there would have been less loss of life, and they would have been a bit better prepared in a lot of areas.
Well, that's great advice. And in today's multimedia environment, there are a lot of sources of weather information. Some of it, and as a meteorologist, I agree with a lot of my meteorology colleagues that some of it is dumbed down to the point where it's difficult to have the information to make good decisions. I do find that if you really get your information from the National Weather Service, from their websites, that's usually the best information. And where I live in Nashville, Tennessee, I know that our National Weather Service office seems to give me the best information that is most accurate most of the time. Can't be perfect. We they don't control the weather. They just try to predict what it's going to do. Yeah. And so, that's great advice. I mean, obviously if you're home, you want to know a weather radio, you want some radios that work when the power goes
Yeah.
off. Your situation may vary. What with, do I need heating oil? Do I need a generator? Do I need some a lot of battery power? Uh, for engineers, Christian, my business partner, Larry Fuss, insists on keeping a toolbox at each transmitter site, so it doesn't depend on me bringing one, right?
Right.
Yeah. Anything that you try to make sure that you have at your transmitter sites?
For sure. One of the things that I think is probably most important is bottled water. In the case
Oh,
of Western North Carolina, there was no drinking water up until this last Monday. Um, bottled water really became a huge necessity. So I would encourage you, if you're at a station, especially in an area that gets regular storms, having those supplies on hand really makes a massive difference, especially in the first
Mm,
24 to 48 hours. After the first 48 hours, we were able to get supplies to start coming in from out of the city.
yeah.
But for that first initial hit, really, because people were confused, there was no cell service. So the employees of the station just sort of by instinct said, you know what, I need to go to the radio station. Maybe they have information. And so a lot of the employees came to the radio station sort of instinctively. And some of it too is I think there was this assumption, there might be Wi-Fi, because there was no cell service. There was not electricity in a lot of places for weeks. So it really, having those supplies on hand made a big difference, especially in the early days.
Wow, that is great advice. That's great advice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Dave Anderson, how about some tips from you for being ready?
I would say make sure you have a very good disaster plan. A lot of people I've ran into that have been affected by this storm did not have any disaster plan in place. Something that has all of your contact information for all of your vendors, something that has
Oh,
contacts for all of your fuel suppliers,
mhm.
roof technicians, air conditioning people, anything that you could think of that you would need a pinch. We all go, okay, yeah, great, it's on our phone, but if you don't have your phone, it's kind of handy to have it in a little book that's already posted at the transmitter site. Another thing that I would say is if you see a storm like this coming, have a chainsaw in your car and leave it in your car. You never know when you're going to need to get past something that's fallen down that's going to block you. Uh, when water's rising, that it could mean life safety. If you are at a site and water's rising, and the tree was blocking your escape route, that could really be an issue. Um, and I would say probably the last thing that I would recommend is look at options like Starlink. There were numerous stations in this market that is what kept them on the air.
Hmm.
Starlink.
Hmm.
They
Wow.
had
That's
lost their other capacities, and for whatever reason, the engineer of this particular group decided, "Hey, I'm gonna put a couple Starlinks in at a couple of the sites," and he literally just anchored them on the roof somehow with some concrete blocks, and that's what kept the station on the air with a pair of little IP codecs. So, those would be my big pieces of advice. And don't forget about your
disaster.
family. That would be the don't forget
Yeah,
about your
Yeah.
family.
absolutely. That's first.
If if
Yeah,
if you're getting
absolutely.
water for the transmitter sites, go ahead and get water for the family too. If you're
Yeah.
getting, I don't know, what if you're getting jars of peanut butter, right? Because that's a good high protein food that we think of for disasters. You getting peanut butter for the family? We'll get some for the transmitter site too.
Mhm.
Maybe
Yeah, for those
another
first
tack.
several days, we actually welcomed folks to bring their family to the station, not to get in the way. We kind of kept them in a separate area, but just really because they had nowhere else to go. You know,
Yeah.
so having that little bit of creature comfort, I think, helped a lot of people mentally get ready for the task ahead of cleaning up.
Wow, these are some great ideas. I like the chainsaw idea too. That's pretty important. And the Starlink, those are so available, and especially if you're a station group, you should certainly be able to afford to have one. Maybe you actually deploy it somewhere, but you can move it if you need to some place that doesn't have service. That's pretty cool. Christian Vang, thank you so much for joining us for making all these pictures and video available. I wish we could have gotten to more of them, but I
Absolutely.
think it was real valuable what we got to. Um, Dave Anderson, good to see you. Thank you for joining us and summarizing this good advice for us and showing us your pictures too. Really
Glad
appreciate
to
it.
be here, Kirk.
And Chris Tarr had to take off early, so we say adieu to Chris Tarr. Thanks, Chris, for joining us as well. And we've got to go. We're going to be we'll be back next week with another edition. Is next week Thanksgiving? Is that coming up already? It
Mhm.
is, isn't it? Oh
Yes.
my God. Yeah, well, we're gonna have a Thanksgiving show. I for are we having maybe we're having Mark Persons. Yeah, I think we may have Mark Persons on the show next week. We're gonna pre-record it and play it back on Thanksgiving Day. If Suncast is agreeable, if he's not, we'll play it back some other day. How about that? We'll let you know. You can follow us on Facebook. That's a good place to keep up with us. I think we have an account on X. I think we're posting. I'm posting things there. Notifications that the next show is available. So check us out. And YouTube. That's a great place to go find our channel and subscribe to our channel for This Week in Radio Tech. We push the live show on Facebook and on YouTube. And then when Suncast, when he produces the show, he gives it a nice top and tail, and it's ready to be kept forever. It's on Facebook, but it all comes from YouTube. So that's where we do that. Thanks a lot for joining us. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech.